Good afternoon. Welcome to episode 66 of UncommonCents. Dean Holmes and another missing Craig Kamanis. For those that are keeping score, this is 2 weeks in a row. Ross Murray from Absolute Wealth Advisors has jumped in at very short notice to continue the conversations here today. So, Ross, thanks for jumping in. Unpaid, of course, like every guest.
Unpaid, didn't know about that part, but thanks for letting me know.
That's all right. Feel free to speak highly of your the business that you work for. Is your reward today? Today we are talking a little bit digitally today because Ross is here and his experience is in a bit of this category. We wanted to have a conversation about digital portals, but also linking with that. Probably the motivation to think about this in more detail within your practices is around the cybersecurity type of risks that can come from it. And so we'll break this down into a couple of different parts today, but talk about a couple of the cybersecurity risks overall, what we see in practices, what we see advisors doing, but also what clients are doing and how we can think about improving that over time. We'll talk about the concept of the digital portals and then also sort of delve into the ones that we know and are experimenting or using within practices to share some real life examples of how that works. So Ross, over to you to get us started in the category of cybersecurity. What are you seeing and hearing as the worst possible things that either advisors or clients are doing?
Worst possible things. First of all, that whole space scares the absolute hell out of me because it's ever evolving, and we know that the risks of the stuff that we deal with and the information that we have on file about clients and the transactions that we're doing is just like, it seems like a hacker's dream to say, let's just go and target small financial planning firms or one-man bands where their security systems are probably not that high. So I feel like our industry is ripe for the picking. But I think the worst case scenario would be we're doing a transfer of funds. Hypothetically, it's either a large transfer out of investment account or maybe a client settling on a house and we're moving lots of money. I feel like that would be the dream. If I was a hacker, I would look to say, okay, tell me someone that's buying or selling a house and let me know there's money moving around. So if we're transferring $100,000 or $1 million or something between accounts or between bank accounts, and we send a PDF form that can easily be just edited and change the bank details and send it on the way. I've had quite a few clients, mainly on the construction side, that have been done with that because they're sending large sums of money. And I think one lost $450,000 in a transaction where someone just came in, changed the bank details. They called them up 2 weeks later to say, where's my money? Said, I sent it 2 weeks ago, and the money has disappeared. So,
and the apportionment of blame is very difficult in that example, and we'll go into this in a bit more detail. But the category of what we're talking about is where the vulnerability and the risk comes from is email at the end of the day. Okay, and the way I've been thinking about this, Ross, is that whilst I think the conversation somewhat go is that there's a chance your email can get intercepted going over the internet. And I'm like, sure, there's a chance of that. And I'm not an IT expert to talk about that. No, but I think predominantly it's hard for us to see that one and understand how an email can get captured whilst it's being sent across the internet. But Fraser Jack will confirm how that can happen. The biggest thing that I see and that we see, and the construction guys have these same example, this invoice issue, is it's actually our emails that are sitting on our computer right now. So anyone that's listening can go into their sent emails, scroll all the way to the bottom, and what you're going to find is that you've got emails back from 2006 in your sent emails, perhaps even earlier. And so your sent emails and your deleted items, which are not deleted, they're just in a folder called deleted items. Those two things are really rich databases for the hacker to access. And they don't have to catch this magical email going across the internet to get access to all that information. They are just going to, once they get access to your system, your computer or your phone, they've got access to all of that information. And so the sent emails and the deleted emails is often what we talk about. And that's where the hacker will hack a law firm and sent emails to clients and then change the settlement bank account. It's where the hacker got in and changed the invoicing. Everyone uses Xero, so it's so easy to make an invoice that looks like a Xero invoice and change the bank account details. And on the recipient end, it's almost impossible to see the differences between the hacked email and the other coming back and forth. And so that's, Ross, I think we got to the point where the emails that we have are actually the highest risk asset that we have in our system.
Correct. And I think, the challenge is how detailed do you go? Is it every single time I'm paying an invoice? Because I think the thing is, that's a regular supplier, or that's a regular client, or that's a regular thing. I don't need to check it every time I receive an invoice from them, but just needs one to change, and that one that you don't check is worth a couple $100,000, and
the biggest ones as a result. And then you're and it's a bit of additional time to call up and check the bank details. That's assuming the hacker hasn't also changed the phone number on the invoice. And so not only you've received the fake invoice, but you use the phone number off the fake invoice to call a fake company, and that then confirms the bank account. And so that's where you go to who's to blame for that scenario, because I've sent the money off an invoice that you've sent from your email, but you were hacked, but you blame me because you didn't get the money. And so that's the whole cyber risk that comes from this that we need to be acutely aware of. And so what's the solution, Ross?
Don't send email.
Don't send email. And so it's very true. And I think there was a lot of hacking when in 2000 and say in the early 2000s, the version of hacking was the fraud associated with rolling over superannuation, and people would steal your mail from your mailbox to find your super statement.
Yeah. So I think
that part of it's gone.
Yeah, I think that's the default thing. If emails are the risky thing, stop sending emails, or stop sending vulnerable information via emails. Which, to your point, it's how far back do you go? Do you go back and have to delete every single thing that's ever been sent up until a week ago? And that's your default. The other one, as said, was potentially not having your emails on your phone, because the websites and things and social media that we go on our phone is probably more exposed than other things. So once they get access to your phone, then you can obviously get access to the emails that are on your phone. So I think it's limiting emails to a point, potentially limiting sensitive data that gets sent via email. And you've said time and time again that unfortunately email is the default way of communication that we've all somewhat adopted for particular reasons. And that's just how we communicate with every single person that we come in contact with, suppliers and clients.
Absolutely. So let's jump into the alternative that is out there that many people know about and have been taught about the concept of client portals. So NetWealth do their research every year about the uptake of client portals. And so whilst they differentiate between Advice Tech All-Stars and everyone that participates, there is a growth in the number of firms that are currently using client portals, up to about 48% for the Advice Tech Stars. Obviously, you're an Advice Tech Star if you're using a client portal, but as well as the intention to use over the next 24 months. It's actually been consistent, but it's consistent at 48%. And so if intention turns into reality 4 years in a row, mathematically, everyone must be using portals in a few years' time. But there's a variety of different portals, Ross, that are out there. So perhaps we just talk about just some of the differences that you see between dedicated client portals versus financial planning software versus product providers.
Yeah. So I think we've got on the first one, the software. So Advisor Logic, Xplan, they all have some sort of capability that clients can log in and do something with it. Depends on how much and what the scope of that is. But whether that's just document storage or access to basic information. So that exists. And then obviously we've got as you said, the designated client portal being the MyProsperity or MoneySoft and those other ones where it's serves a different purpose outside of the normal financial planning software.
Yep.
But yeah, I think it's trying to understand what level of detail do you provide, where does it fit into the business. That if it is just, there's the data collection, which I guess we can think about the Office suite in terms of SharePoint or OneDrive or Dropbox, like that's to a point some sort of portal. It's not really necessarily a financial planning friendly one, but it's capturing that information other than email. So it's getting that information from a client. So it's trying to think, where does it fit into your client journey and what services are you providing, that it's either as a data collection or it's data interpretation or it's doing something with that information. Because I think there's just the one-way data where it's just, I'm just requesting this information from you as the client. So that's one form of it.
Absolutely. And the interesting thing, so understanding the purpose of why you might want to invest in a client portal is the first step. So if that was simply to get a client to log in and look at a reverse fact find or their personal information, then the financial planning software variety might be sufficient. If all you want from a portal is the ability for clients to send you documents and for you to post documents for them to see as well, then perhaps, the Dropbox or the SharePoint varieties of those things could be sufficient for making those documents available. And then probably the furthest end is the combination of those two, and then including somewhat around this chat functionality. So the third element of removing email communication entirely from email and pulling that communication into a particular point. And the particular point is all around that we communicate in text message variety messaging now with most of the people that we know, whether that's Teams, Messenger, WhatsApp, or the variety of other chat-based communications. We've changed the way in which we communicate, often to a text message, a short message type of variety of communication. And so an email is the last hurrah of formalities, I think, but clients are used to chatting to you through those other means. I guarantee you, Ross, you would get text messages from clients equally as often as emails, because they've got their phone in their hand and it's so easy to do it.
Yeah. And I think the challenge that we run into is trying to define, what is the communication style. That it's either you have a default view, because like I know, for instance, I have a client that is on Teams, they message me on Teams directly, then they text message me, then they email me something. And there's no clear line of this channel is for this purpose. So it's trying to have that view as well of saying, okay, well, at what level, I guess it's going back to the security part, at what level of sensitivity does it needs to go into a separate channel? And it's like, if it's just general chitty chat, maybe that's text message. Maybe if there's a booking in a meeting, maybe that's a different channel. If I'm sending you financial statements or documents, maybe that's another channel. So it's trying
that's hard. Yeah. We are the ones that are having to navigate those three different ways. And it's hard to run a business if your clients, Ross, are only texting your mobile phone. Yeah. So the team behind you doesn't actually get to see those messages and help until you've managed to triage it down. And so I think the idea of having this coordinated communication, now in the future, that might be Teams, because Teams does and actually can have a consumer friendly way of chit chatting back and forth. But then it may not necessarily have all the other functionality of what we might say from the Microsperity perspective. Yeah. And I think that the next phase of thinking about the client portal is definitely thinking about how our clients are currently interacting with the vast majority of tech. And so I used to have the example of like Apple and Google, in that they put a lot of effort into making their app or their phone program, and then the apps off the back of it, really user friendly. That they don't write manual. There's no manual to learn how to use an iPhone, because it's so obvious, as they would assume, but it's so obvious that most people can work it out. And so that's the first iteration. We know that the shopping apps that are built off the back of Shopify and things like that, Ross, are incredibly quick and easy to be able to spend money. Obviously, that's a consumer product that's designed to be able to spend money, but keeping the simplicity of the tool pushes us down to the fact that these tools need to be essentially on our phones, and use that level of encryption and entry, like biometrics, password, passcodes, etc., to make sure that we're actually putting a really good roadblock in the way of getting access to the data.
Yeah, correct. And I think, the point there as well is like the friction from a client experience of they can do anything and everything they want on their phone, instantaneous, book an Uber, order food, done, like it happens. Then they come to us and say, what needs to happen? Oh, can you please fill out this form, print it? Who has, like, what? I don't know, many people have access to printers in their home. Are they going to Officeworks, or they have to go into the office to print the form, sign it, wet signature, send it back? Like, all those things just create that friction with the customer where you're trying to get information and trying to deliver a service as quick as possible. And we're having to go through all these manual steps of take a photo, email it to me, post it here, do that. So it's getting better, but I still think we're quite behind.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot we can do to all improve in that regard. But the experience, if it's all coordinated into one spot, through a centralized communication, centralized document sharing, I think we get well on our way to having the journey be a much more smoother journey from a client perspective.
Correct.
So so let's talk about a little bit about the features beyond the communication of what you use with your clients today. Like, what are three things that you think that all of your clients are utilizing through the client portal at the moment?
Yeah. So the first one would be, there's nowhere else. So using My Prosperity in this particular case, there's nowhere else that I know of that a client can see their entire financial world all in one place.
Yep.
So My Prosperity example is that they can see their home value, which gets updated. They can see their car value, their bank accounts, their investments, their superannuation, their any other thing that they might have in terms of, that might not be data fed, but at least we can put it in there, and we can see a almost 100% live valuation of their current financial world in one place. So if we think about the alternative of how is that possible, I need to find out my home value. Where do I go? I need to go to the website, and I'm putting that in a spreadsheet. I'm putting that in a Word document. I need to get my superannuation balances. Maybe I've got 3 super funds. I need to go to each of them, get an update balance, and then put it somewhere. I've got 3 different banks because I've got loans with different banks. I need to go and get that information. I've got my home loans elsewhere. I've got an investment portfolio with CFS. I've got a crypto portfolio somewhere else. I've got whatever it is, but it's all disjointed and spread out. So be able to see your entire financial world all in one place is great for us as the advisor, but also great from the client, because then they may know exactly where they are, where they stand at any given time.
Yep.
So
that's good. That's the great balance sheet. So that's one feature that everyone that you think that you value, or clients value. Yep.
Correct. The other one would be access to information from us, from our perspective. Again, there's the client benefit, but just thinking selfishly from the advisor perspective of, hey, Dean, we're about to do some work. I need to know what your salary is. You go, okay, here's my pay slip. Your pay slip's 3 months old. I can log into My Prosperity and see what you got paid 2 days ago because your bank account is live. So I can see exactly what your net income is. So I can see what's happening there. We've just set up an investment account, and maybe there's a delay between transfers of when you told me you sent the money and when it hits the investment account 2 weeks later. I can log into My Prosperity and see if that money's actually left your account. So we can see that information from an older client's perspective. We can see what their Centrelink payments are. So one, we could log into Centrelink and find it, or we could log into the bank account and see it hitting the information. So doing things like that is great. And also when it comes to supplying information to mortgage brokers or banks or something, we can go and find that information in their bank accounts and supply it to them. So the example that I would like to give is a client was selling the house, and they needed to know, the real estate agent wanted to know what the rates and water bills were so they could provide it to potential buyers.
Yep.
Called me up, logged into My Prosperity. Here's the last 4 payments for rates and water and insurance or whatever it was.
And you could just search that.
You can search that information and pull it up and find it. So
brilliant.
access to information from our perspective, so obviously we don't have access to clients' bank accounts outside of a portal. So how else would we get that information? Is we have to contact the client. The client would have to search through their bank statements and to find that information. So yeah, just access to information helps helps us as the advisor deliver that advice faster.
Yeah, awesome.
And then
sorry, you go.
I was going to say, then I think the third one goes back to the point that we raised at the start, is it's a secure portal that's not via email. So if I'm requesting bank statements, driver's license, passports, Medicare documents, cards, etc., we can put it all into a secure portal that the client has access to. So that, again, there's a benefit from us and there's a benefit from the client, that if they need access to the information, because I don't know how many people are organized enough to carry around a certified copy of their Medicare card, when for some reason we always seem to need it for particular things. So I constantly get messages from clients to say, hey, I know I supplied it to you 6 months ago. Can you send a copy to me because I didn't save it, or I don't have it somewhere. So
that's an element of the service that we provide to clients. And so, Ross, the question of like, who gets the most benefit out of the investment in the software? So regardless of what path people go down in terms of the choice of client portals, it's an investment. And in this world, predominantly the advice business is paying for this convenience. So the idea of having a wrap account and things like that, somewhat the client pays and the advisor gets some benefit. In the idea of the portal, we're paying for it most likely. Who gets more benefit, do you think?
I think it depends on what features they're using. So again, I think about it from looking at younger clients and older clients, that maybe for older clients, they might not be worried as much about the budgeting and figuring out what they're spending. So that maybe they're not going to use that feature. But we want to know that when a client tells us that they spend $40,000 a year, and then we look at their expenses at actually 60, that, yes, it's going to benefit the client, but that's more beneficial for us because that allows us to confirm and run all their numbers and do the thing. So there's that side of it where I think for older clients, we potentially get the benefit. Whereas if we've got a super complicated client that they've got 20 properties, for instance, multiple bank accounts, everything everywhere, then they're going to get a lot of benefit out of it to be able to see their financial world all in the one place.
Correct. And perhaps for the first time
Yeah, correct. And then when we think of the extra features, again, thinking My Prosperity, that from a property perspective, we can tie in their management agent. So then they pull in the rental statements. So come tax time, they can provide all that information or give the accountant access and they can see it all in one place. So I think it depends on the features that are getting used, but I think at a high level that unless the client's trained on it well, then the advisor is probably getting more benefit from it.
You're most probably right there, and we're paying for it, right? So the advice and the advice practice should be getting a lot of benefit from it. They're investing in it. They're leading the charge. The clients are demanding a solution because they're finding the relationship has a lot of friction, but they don't know what they're demanding. But essentially, it's a portal. But the business, I think, is getting a lot of current benefit by being able to work better going forward. But there's also this future reputational benefit because you're a digital first firm, for example. It's something that you can, if you were trying to differentiate yourself in front of another advisor, for example, the idea that you're a digital first firm, I think, is a really forward step. To compare yourself to someone else down the road. Obviously, you have to have a portal to say you're digital first, I would say. But that's one element of it. The other element that I look at it from an investment perspective is we need to appeal to the next generation. Typically speaking, if you can appeal to the children of your current clients by saying that everything your parents have is digitized, and with their permission, I can give you access, that's incredibly powerful. And I think advisors are going to lose clients over the next 5 years because the kids are going to come in and say, I can't work with this 1980s advisor because they still do everything over email and we can't play in that world anymore. I can't believe that they're still playing in the world, but the clients will demand that from the parent service provider at the end of the day. So I think that that's a additional push into going, we're not just getting portals for our clients today, we're getting portals into this business for the children of our clients, because they're helping our aging parents.
And I think you look at what's the alternative of where would someone have that information at the moment? If you went to your parents or grandparents and said, "Hey, you need help with this. Let me find out where everything is." It's like, where do people, unless it's an Excel or a Word document, where do they store that information? Their balance sheet. Like,
who knows? Well, if you live in the bush, it's in a fireproof box under the stairs, which most likely you forget to get out on the way out. And if you live in the city, it's in a drawer. It's in a drawer in your desk. Both of which are quite secure from a digital perspective because they're offline, but obviously not scalable in terms of being able to share or learn or find those documents at a moment's notice, which I think is super important. Ross, I just wanted to conclude and sort of reiterate something that we spoke about before, is just in relation to that whole email management, and just calling out the danger of, we know that sent an email in your inbox kind of thing, but the idea of having email on your phones, for example, that presents a couple of different risks as well. And through Count, there was a cyber audit that happened across some of the practices I work with, and one of the call outs was the ability to wipe your phone for your employer or the owner of the business, could be the same, but our ability to wipe someone's phone or laptop in the event that those two items were lost. Because if you lose your phone and someone can get access to what's on the physical phone, or you lose your laptop and the same thing happens, and you can't digitally wipe those things remotely, it's an extra vulnerability. So whilst going to the extent of the portals requires a few months or a year's worth of transition, getting your digital house in order at the today's activity is making sure that if you need to, you can remote wipe and lock and delete data from your devices at a moment's notice. And so my one call out in the short term is go and find out, if you lost your phone, can your employer or your IT department delete your phone remotely to save the data, to remove the data that was on it? So that's one important thing. Slight story, Ross. I guarantee you every financial advisor in Australia has photos of driver's licenses and passports on your phone. And a quick way to find it is if you go into Google Photos or iPhoto and type in the word passport, it'll actually show you all of the passports that you have on your phone. So quick tip, if everyone can go and do that right now and at least delete them from your phone. But get this, they're not just deleted from your phone. Now they're also sitting in your iCloud account, synced up with your computer that's at home, and your home computer is what's getting hacked while we're speaking. So that's a doomsday kind of example, but it's really important to know where your files are being synced as well. So short term, speak to IT about a couple of things there. And then if you're going down the client portal, do some research in relation to your different options, but ask yourself the question around, what does my client want in this relationship? And what is the most secure way in which I can achieve what my client wants? Ross, any last words from you?
I am very biased behind, obviously, the portals that we use, but the big one for me is like access to property. Every single person wants to talk about property, so giving them ability to see the live property value of what's happening on their current balance sheet when it comes to property is great, because I honestly don't know how else we do that other than you sit down for a meeting and we log into RP data and find the information there. So I think, as I mentioned at the start, the ability to see your entire financial world all in one place, that's 80 to 90% live, assuming that everything's added in properly, it helps prepare for meetings. It helps run the meeting agenda because you can talk to it and you just pull up the document, you pull up the portal and talk through what their current situation is. So
spectacular.
saves a lot of time.
Very good. All right. Thank you, Ross, for your time today and jumping in and filling the shoes of Craig Kamanis. You've done a spectacular job. So thank you very much. That was episode 66. If you're listening to it whilst going for a walk, enjoy your walk and on the podcast. And we'll see you in a fortnight. And I have had a promise from Craig that he won't make it 3 misses in a row. So if you are missing a little bit of Mr. Kamanis, he will be back soon. Until then, enjoy the rest